Welcome to the revolution. Sam Smith's Grammy performance, where he was dressed as the devil on primetime television with women around him dancing in what appeared to be bondage materials with flames all around them. It's like in primetime television, right? Children watching this in one of the most celebrated Hollywood events, right? Now you have people out there like Alex Jones who have been talking about Hollywood being satanic, calling them Satanists for decades. And everybody for how long has pointed to Alex Jones and called him a conspiracy theorist. And all of a sudden, it's just rubbed in our face constantly. From the artwork that was on the wall of Freaky Friday Mom's business meeting office that we talked about last week, to Sam Smith's Grammy performance, to basically everything that comes out of Hollywood, from the cosmetic lines of the Kardashians to there's basically nothing that you can point to that is not satanic at this point in Hollywood. That's an exaggeration, but this is probably one of the most egregious ones. So there's a lot of pushback on this, and let's find out why. So this article comes from Yahoo News, and it says, did we really need a satanic bondage show at the Grammys? And this, again, comes from Yahoo News, which is kind of surprising to me because Yahoo News is primarily left-leaning, and even they're critiquing this. All right, so it goes on to say that, want to know why so many people are giving up on mainstream pop culture? Take a look at Sam Smith and Kim Petras' performance of their hit song Unholy at the Grammy Awards on Sunday night. In case you missed it, Variety described the performance as including Petras dancing in a cage, flanked by some dominatrices wearing satanic headgear. Smith also donned a satanic top hat as huge flames heated up the stage. You know, wholesome family entertainment. Now it looks totally possible for a mature adult to watch this and see it for what it is, an aggressive reach for attention through controversy, right? And that's what some people have done as like a defense to this, right? When it came to Balenciaga, when it came to even this, you'll see a lot of people are just saying, oh, it's just, they're trying to push controversy. Well, here's the thing about that, right? When we're talking about people's religions, when we're talking about like the actual good versus evil, like maybe this isn't the time when Balenciaga's literally subtweeting pedophilia and satanic ritualistic, I don't know, endeavors through their ad campaigns. And then Jamie Lee Curtis gets called out for having a pedophilia-based artwork on her wall. And then, all of these things that are happening simultaneously over the last, 2 to 3 years. Maybe now's not the time to have a satanic ritual on stage during the Grammys. That's all I'm saying. Maybe there's a better time for that. And maybe it's not immediately after Balenciaga, Jamie Lee Curtis, and all of these people, Epstein, like maybe now is not the time, right? Maybe there's a better time for that. Or maybe there's no reason for it all when you're pushing it during mainstream hours, right? You have children watching the Grammys. It's the Grammys. It's like literally like going to watch American Idol, and then all of a sudden they're pushing Satanism down your throat. And everybody's acting like Satanism isn't an actual thing, right? I watched something on Joe Rogan. I was watching a recent Joe Rogan episode where it was, what's the guy's name? Let me see if I can find it. The guy was on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about how ridiculous it is that the right takes the idea that there's Satanists within high up political positions and within Hollywood and all of these things seriously, right? Like Kyle Kulinski, which wasn't the most crazy positions that he held during this, and I would be happy to speak with him. But his position was this. He went on to Joe Rogan and said something along the lines of the fact that there's real conspiracies out there, right? There's things like Epstein Island are real, but things like the Q conspiracy, which, yes, there's definitely some crazy, weird, unrealistic, bizarre, and far-reaching positions within the Q movement. But one of them that he called out specifically was that there is satanic rituals happening in high up positions of Hollywood and government political positions, right? He alluded to the idea that, oh, that's just a conspiracy and everybody wants to call them out. But Joe Rogan has talked about this specifically, that there's actually things going on like Bohemian Grove, where you have people who are in high political positions, who are multi-billionaires, who all meet each other at a certain little club in California and burn effigies that are supposed to be child sacrifices to a owl god at Bohemian Grove, which, again, going back to Alex Jones, he actually went and did undercover work to be there during one of these and saw the whole thing go down. This is real, right? Now, he talked about the Comet ping pong pizza thing and like Pizzagate and all of that and how crazy that is. And maybe so. Maybe that's crazy. But you cannot tell me that there is not Satanists riddled within high political and positions within high societal positions like Hollywood, like music, like politics. You cannot tell me that that is not a thing. It's already been proven in places like Bohemian Grove. And then these things just compound on top of it, right? So when we see people like Bill Clinton riding on Epstein's plane to go to Epstein Island, Bill Gates being best friends, it seems like, with Epstein during all of this, right? All of these people having their own islands, and then you look at the altars sitting on the top of Epstein Island. You cannot tell me that there is not a deeper issue going on there at all that is not motivated in some sort of anti-Christianity, anti-God, satanic, ritualistic thing going on there that is self-admitted in the Bohemian Grove situation. We already know that to be true. So it's frustrating to me that everybody is still trying to say that you're crazy for saying that these things exist. If you tell me that I'm crazy for believing that Christians exist, everybody would look at you and go, yeah, you're dumb. But you tell people that there's actual Satanists in high positions in politics, or even that they just exist in general, and people all of a sudden think you're a wild conspiracy theorist. It's like, no, there is a good and there is an evil. There is a light and there is a dark. It's a real thing, guys. Okay? Now, that kind of goes back to the music conversation here, right? The conversation here is that maybe this was a cry for attention. Maybe this was a cry for controversy. Maybe they wanted to get more eyes on the Grammys because nobody gives a shit about it at all anymore. Nobody watches the Grammys, at least not that I know. Nobody cares about any of these shows anymore. They're completely irrelevant. So maybe it is a cry for attention. And all publicity is good publicity, even if it is satanic, right? Maybe that's the case, but maybe now is not the time to do that with all of these things coming out like Balenciaga and all of these other campaigns that have been rearing their ugly heads during this time, right? So there's my thought on that. All right, it moves on to say that this, it says that there was the 1980s satanic panic when politicians' wives were able to get congressional hearings held to tackle the supposed scourge of heavy metal bands that seemed harmlessly campy with the passage of time. And last night's Satan Bondage show reminded me of that Onion headline from 22 years ago. Marilyn Manson now goes door to door trying to shock people. But even if you see the satanic shtick as more schlocky than disturbing, it's hard to make the case that images of women grinding in cages are appropriate for network television on a Sunday night during prime time, a time when the broadest audience available, including children, are watching. Again, we are talking about the Grammy Awards, mainstream pop music's Oscars, which aired on CBS from 8 p.m. Now, one thing about it, too, is CBS before the show said, ready, what did they say? They said in a tweet, ready to worship. CBS, the same CBS that you watched Arthur on, pretty sure that was CBS, the same CBS that you throw on kids' cartoons is saying ready to worship the devil with Sam Smith at the Grammy Awards. Now, to piggyback off of that and make things even worse on the transition out of the performance, the very next thing that pops on the screen with flames in the background is sponsored by none other than Pfizer. Who would have thought? You cannot write this. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? If I was sponsoring, you know how much that ad position costs? Do you know how much Pfizer paid out to have that specific position during the Grammy Awards on the backs of a satanic ritual music performance that was going on, whether it was for shock factor or if it was really what happened. Now, some people are also showing and talking about the 2,000 plus people that died from an earthquake the day following. I'm not saying anything about that, but it's an interesting coincidence. But what in the world, right? So, this is not, it goes on to say, this is not to say art shouldn't be provocative. Petrus, whose past hits include Treat Me Like a Slut, during her acceptance speech after winning the Grammy Best Pop Duo Performance for Unholy, proclaimed that she was the first transgender woman to win the award, and later backstage explained that she grew up wondering about religion and wanted to be a part of it, but slowly realizing it didn't want me to be a part of it. So it's a take on not being able to choose religion and not being able to live the way that people might want you to live, because as a trans person, I'm already not kind of wanted in religion. So we were doing a take on that, and I was kind of Hellkeeper Kim. What kind of bullshit response is that? That's the best you got for that? Like, oh, I'm trans. That was literally her response is, well, don't be mad at me. I'm trans. What a perfect response. What? As far as I'm concerned, this says, willing adults can watch this if they want, but last night's TV audience didn't buy a ticket for this. Indeed, on a show intended for general audiences, it was meant to provoke, to push boundaries, and very possibly designed to offend a good portion of the audience. At least 30-40% of the audience is somebody not far left liberal, which the fact that you even have to say that, like the idea that being associated with trans or the left is inherently makes you much closer to being on the side of the satanic ritualistic performance is kind of comical, right? And I don't think that very many people would agree with that are on the left that would like this to be happening. Like, I don't think that's, but the mainstream is trying to say that, right? Anyways. All right, let's go ahead and read on. It goes on to say, all right. And when you're sticking your finger in the eye of millions of people, it's really hard to argue with those saying that Hollywood produces a mainstream popular culture that is openly intolerant of their values. It's also hard to tell them they're wrong and intolerant if you would prefer to check out, unplug the TV, and homeschool your kids, which we'll get to at the end of this. Choice is a two-way street, and many are making the informed choice to tune out while they still can. I may be more attuned to this than some. Almost every Sunday, my wife and I sit back at the pew of a conservative church. About once a month, the pastor preaches about how bad things are in America and how our culture is so debauched and depraved. So this must be a very opinionated piece from Yahoo that nobody approved, because they would never let somebody who goes to church be a part of Yahoo. All right. Anyways. And then they have the actual performance here. Let's see if we can see the last minute or so, 30 seconds. Or not. Or not. All right. Moving on. All right. The next thing that we're going to discuss here is going to be, and I'd be interested to see your guys' thoughts. Do you think that they were being real? Do you think that it was all a ploy for controversy? I don't know. Either way, do better. That's so like campy is the right term. Like just cheap. If that's what you're doing for controversy, right? That's like, you can just maybe be better at singing and writing songs. You don't have to do satanic stuff to get people's attention.